want to get a little bit more details of what the CMDB 360 looks like. I have a couple more questions on that. Well, also, hey, I need to understand a little bit more about dynamic reconciliation rules and how that works. Our resources for the call is Tamir and Kieran.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
This is one of the demo instance or test instance we have. Again, the data is all created. Might not be realistic like what you're looking, but I just want to convey the point of how you can use the CMDB360. So on the workspace, if you go to workspace and if you go to CMDB workspace, there's a tab called CMDB360. To actually use this, there are some prerequisites. One of them is you need to have the discovery visibility license. And once you have that license, you have to go to CMDB360 properties. This is where you enable kind of the CMDB360. Basically says that what kind of data you want to collect and store in CMDB360. I'll step back a second and explain what CMDB360 is, right? Like as the name indicates, it's a 360. So there is not, in general, there isn't only one source actually bringing information to your CMDB. There could be many sources that is actually collecting data and sending it to your CMDB. So before this feature, before this product, basically, we never had the ability to store what actually the raw data sent by each discovery source. For example, in your environment, if you have ServiceNow discovery, but you also have, let's say, Tanium or SCCM or Azure, whatever different kind of discovery sources that are bringing information to CMDB. Earlier, we didn't have the ability to store what each exactly the source has sent. Always, we would have only the final state, which is after the reconciliation piece, based on your configuration of the reconciliation rules, the final value would be in the CMDB. But with this feature, once you enable, you actually get a collection of all the data that is being sent by each discovery source. So for exactly, let's say for my computer, if it is getting discovered by Tanium, by also getting discovered by JAMF and ServiceNow, we actually save all the data that is sent by each discovery source, and then we can build analytics, we can build querying capability, we can understand more about your data. That's kind of the reason why we built this product. And when you enable this product, you have an option to enable, either you wanted to enable this collection for all of the CMDBs, or only you want to specifically look for CIs, like classes that extend CMDB CI, right? You have the option to decide what you want to enable collection for. If you're starting fresh, probably I would suggest like, hey, start with CMDB CIs because those are the most important ones. And then later, if you want to enable non-CMDB, which are like related tables like serial numbers, location, some other tables that are related to CMDB CIs, but not exactly CIs, you can actually enable those things in the checkbox. Once you enable those checkbox, and after installing the plugin, if you go to CMDB360, then you actually see a dashboard kind of summarizing how your data looks like in your system. Again, once you enable it, you want the data to be, sorry, Anand, you have a question?
Yeah. So Kiran, like, as you are saying, like all the raw data will get saved. So will it be using the different table in backend for CMDB360?
Yes, it will use a different table. That's where actually the data gets saved, not the CMDB CI itself. There's a different table where we actually save data by source. So for a single CI, if it is getting discovered by 3 sources, then you'll have 3 different records what each source is sending.
Okay, yeah, got it.
So once you enabled it, once the data starts flowing into your system, there's a dashboard analytics job that runs every night. Once that job has run, you'll actually get this beautiful dashboard where you can get a glimpse of what is happening in your system. So if you start with, you can see that here you have like number of discovery sources that are reporting your CMDB. Here you can see there are 6 different discovery sources. Total in this case, there are 2000 records in the CMDB360 table. And these 2000 records got reconciled into 498 CIs. what does this mean, right? There are like 2000 raw records, but they are actually converting into 498 CIs. So that means each of these CIs on an average have about 4 discovery sources reporting. So you can find out that information. And out of those 2000 records, this is the kind of a chart which tells you what discovery source is bringing more information compared to other. Like in this case, ServiceNow is bringing about 85% of the data, and the rest are all, ServiceNow is bringing about 23% and 22%, and rest all like, in this case, manual entry is very like 0.05%. So it gives a glimpse of what are the sources that are bringing information to you, right? Next chart would actually, we go into this chart. This chart talks about like, hey, I know that you are saying that CIs are getting reconciled into 498 from the raw records. Tell me how is the coverage looks like, right? Like how many CIs in my environment are discovered by a single discovery source? How many CIs are discovered by 5+ discovery source and in between? So this will tell you what are those, the overview of about your CIs, who discovers them, and what are those discovery sources. So if you click on this chart, it should tell you what are those exact CIs that are actually getting discovered by a single discovery source. You might see that, hey, my San Diego Data Foundation Lab 02 is supposed to be discovered by more than one discovery source because I've configured it to be discovered by 2 discovery sources, but I only see one discovery source actually discovering it. So then you can take some action about it, right? If you want to go look at, okay, I know that these are the one single discovery source, but what exactly the discovery source or distribution, you can click on it. Like here you see, there are 90 CIs which are discovered by a single source. Out of those 90 CIs, ServiceNow is bringing 42 of them, and ServiceWatch is bringing 37, and some other things, right? It gives a kind of a glimpse of how your data patterns looks like. If you want to take some action, you can take some action around this. I'll go back to these 2 charts, the important charts. I wanted to explain a little bit more about these ones. So for example, let's start with data mismatch, right? So let's say you have your Linux servers getting reported or getting discovered by 2 or more discovery sources like Tanium and ServiceNow Discovery, right? And when they get discovered, you might want to see if there is any data mismatch between those 2 different discovery sources. For example, the fully qualified domain name is getting discovered from Tanium, but it is saying a.b.c, whereas the ServiceNow is saying a.b, right? If you want to find any kind of those data mismatches, you can actually configure this chart to find out data mismatches in your environment. So by default, we have some configuration, and you can see there are like 7,000 of those data mismatches. If you click on this chart, it will tell you what exactly are those data mismatches. In this case, you see this is a demo server. The CPU count, it is saying it has a data mismatch. So the ServiceNow discovery is saying that, hey, the value is 251, but the Tivoli is saying the value is 252. Again, this is demo data, but in your case, you might want to configure it like what attributes you want to look on the data mismatch, but you get an idea, right? Like you can configure what attributes you wanted to look at it, and then it will automatically calculate the data mismatch. So here you can see fully qualified domain name and a few others. So this gives a glimpse of how your data sources are doing, right? And this can be configured. I'll talk about a little bit more configuration. Here is the CIs not reported by discovery source. Let's say you have a CI that is supposed to be discovered by 3 discovery sources, but one of the discovery source stopped discovery, right? It could be because of a credential issue. It could be because of a network issue. Something happened and the data stopped flowing for that CI. Only one of the discovery sources is reporting it. Other 2 are stopped reporting it. Without this, you will probably not know about like, hey, I'm up to date. Why is my discovery not happening on this particular CI? So this chart will tell you if a particular CI that is supposed to be discovered by 3 discovery sources, if it is stopped discovering for any reason, it will actually show it here. So in this case, for example, let's say this demo server, it is supposed to be discovered, but it stopped discovering some time back, right? So the default is like 7 days. If a particular discovery source stop reporting for last 7 days, then you actually show up in this chart. So again, this can be configured. So here, if you see, there are multiple discovery sources. Even if one discovery source stopped reporting, compared to, like, for example, let's say Service Watch reported today, but Tivoli didn't report like the last 1 week, you would actually surface that information here. Any questions on this, the default ones? Okay. You might have a question that, hey, I know you are actually talking about all of the CIs in my environment. Is there a way I can actually drill down into specific classes that I'm interested in rather than the whole ecosystem? So we had put a filters here. So basically it will tell you that, hey, I'm not interested in all of the data as a user. I'm specifically interested in only CMDB CIs. Even though I'm collecting data for all the classes, but I'm only specifically interested in CMDB CIs. Then if you click on this, these charts will automatically get filtered and then show the data. Or if you say that, hey, I know CMDB CI is a big collection of classes. I'm again interested in very specific classes. If you can make those classes principal classes, then we would also get filtered by it. For example, if you say that, hey, as a user, my job is to only focus on Windows servers and Linux servers. If you make those as principal classes, then these charts will automatically get refreshed based on what your selection of principal classes. If you go to settings tab, okay. Before going to settings tab, I wanted to answer kind of a question. So again, this is a very small instance. You have only thousands of CIs, but in reality, customers have millions of CIs, right? It's not like they have only 2,000 CIs. So when you have millions of CIs or hundreds of millions of CIs, we calculate these charts correctly, in the sense that we calculate these charts with the right accuracy. Basically, for example, if there are like 10 million CIs which are discovered by 5+ discovery sources, we show the number here as 10 million. But when you click on the chart, we don't want to populate all 10 million of them for you, because realistically, nobody is going to look at all 10 million CIs every day. Or when you click on a chart, you might look at 1 or 2 pages, probably that's it, and then you make some decision around it. So what we came up with was like, we populate the aggregate counts as 10 million, but when you click on this, we limit you to show only 100,000, right? Then you might ask, okay, I know you have 10 million, but you showed only 100,000. Which 100,000 are you planning to show, right? Like, is it going to be the random order? Is it going to be some unimportant classes? So we gave flexibility in the settings page. You can come and configure what classes of data you want to see when you click on it. So if you go to settings chart, then here you can decide what kind of classes that you are interested when you drill down into the chart. For example, as a user, if your most important classes are Windows Server and Linux servers, then you can add them things. Or if you're as a user, if for you and for your company, if the important classes are, let's say, computers, then you can add computers. And if there are multiple classes, then you can give ratios. For example, if it is automatic, they are equally divided. But if you want to do like, hey, I want my Windows servers to be 80%, but my Linux servers to be 20%, then you can actually configure those things here, right? So this is one setting. This is the setting that drives when you actually click on a chart, what number of records that shows you. So this configuration is for coverage charts, but I also talked about data mismatch, kind of like what attributes are important for you to figure out the data mismatch. And here you can come and decide what classes and what attributes you like to find data mismatches. So here in this case, I'm saying that, hey, I'm interested in a hardware class. I wanted to find and report any data mismatch out of these 2 attributes. You can say if company is a company field has a mismatch or a fully qualified domain name has a mismatch, I want that to be surfaced. So there's an option here you can say that, hey, I want to be, I want to call it as a data mismatch if any of these attributes mismatch, or you can say all of those mismatch. For example, you say that, hey, I only want those CIs to be surfaced where company and fully qualified domain name both have a data mismatch between sources. Like if only one of them is mismatched, ignore it. Then you can actually have an option where you can say, hey, every attribute has to mismatch, right? And again, as I mentioned, you have automatic weights and manual weights. You can give weights or how much data should come from what class. Like if there are thousands and thousands of those class or data mismatches happening in your system, you would like to focus on the important classes. So there you can actually configure what percentage of those things should surface in the chart. Here, if you see, there are a limited set of attributes we actually show on data mismatch. So you might get confused like, hey, on my hardware class, there are hundreds of attributes, but I don't see all of them here. What is the issue here? So basically, when we build this, it's an expensive operation. So we don't want you to go run data mismatch for everything. So we kind of choose some important attributes to only calculate data mismatch. If there is a need for you, like, hey, there are more important attributes than this, we can work together to see how we can add those things. But out of the box, we do not give them ability to find data mismatch on every attribute.
Yeah, so Kiran, I do have one question on that. Is this customizable? Like if you do have any custom attribute at our level, right? And that data is getting seen from those different sources, and we just wanted to check where exactly that data mismatch is happening. Can that custom attribute is configurable over here, or how is it? Or different
So,
conditions even if you wanted to put different condition, attribute condition, what you have mentioned only two. Like if there are any other scenarios, can that be done?
Custom attribute, if you really need a custom attribute that has to come up here, we can work together and see, you can add it, but you cannot add any other filter. For example, if you want to say that, hey, I wanted assigned to, but it has to be only assigned to my group. Yeah, that you cannot do today. You cannot add additional filters. It's purely on attribute. So you cannot explicitly filter it down with like more granular kind of filters when you are doing data mismatch. If you want to do an ad hoc report, we can talk about. There is a query piece where you can actually add a little bit more filters. So this is out of the box reporting, so we don't give you a filter conditions on a specific attributes.
Okay, so Kiran, one more follow-up question for that. But when we are getting all the raw data into that CMDB 360 tables, then if there are any custom fields as well, will that come, or that also has been restricted? Okay, this particular integration service now support these many attributes, and we are not going to save the data for those custom attribute in raw table as well.
No, we do store all attributes, whatever you sent for that CI. We do save them, but we didn't give the ability to query on those things. So that's something we are working. We can work together to see if there's a need for you and how we can actually help you out for querying on custom attributes.
Okay.
Kieran, kind of a follow-up question on that is, does the same hold true for extended tables or classes we've added?
So if you extend, let's say, if you extend a hardware table, and all of these attributes are available on those extended table, right? So it should automatically work. For example, if you define a class my hardware, and all of these attributes will automatically be there on it. Any new additional attributes that you have on that class, that's something we do not support right now, but we can work together.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question kind of for our team.
Sure.
On the data weighting, the data weights, have you all already been exposed to that? That's the first time I've seen the weights come up. I've never seen that before. Does it make sense to you?
Yeah,
Yes,
it's not
Yeah, go
unlike reconciliation. and how you weight things in there. It's similar to it.
Oh, okay. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that that was resonating with you because I had not seen this before. Okay. That's
Yeah.
it. You.
Yeah, the main reason for that one was like we just didn't want to show millions and millions of records and populate them every time. It's no manual, like no, realistically nobody would go and look at those millions
Right.
of records.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Makes sense. Thanks.
So the first chart which I've said discovery sources not reporting. So this you can customize it. You can say that like when do you want to surface that kind of CIs when it is stop discovering by a specific source. You can go range up to 90 days starting from 1 day. So you might say that, hey, I wanted it to surface immediately if it is not discovered in 2 days. Or you might say that, hey, my discovery schedules run longer. It's perfectly fine. Some discovery source takes 7 days to discover things. So you can, play around with the right number that is, useful for your environment. So that's the one you can say here. Max is 90 days is a reasonable value we thought. If it doesn't discover in 90 days, then something probably is incorrect in your environment. So here, the one I talked about, like the 100,000 records is what we actually show when you drill down a chart. This is something that you can configure, but you can configure only up to 500,000 because we don't want you to, slow down your system and take the jobs taking longer to run. If you are really, want to increase the value from 100,000 to go about to 200,000 records, you want to drill down, you have a lot of time, and there's a need for you to click a chart and go into more than 100,000. Yeah, you can configure it to 500,000, but 500,000 is like the max we have configured. Like we don't want to go beyond that. Okay. So this settings are specific to kind of these charts. Like these are the charts we populate out of the box. And you can change it, you can look around the data and understand what is happening. But like one of you have asked, hey, I do collect data for much more than this, right? Like I wanted to understand what is there in your system. Then basically you can actually create some queries. For example, if you go click on create query, there are 3 different options where you can say that, hey, I wanted to proactively look around my data, what's happening in the system. So then you can say like, hey, I want to find CMDB360 data. Like if you want to go explore what sources are reporting, for example, you have a source like let's say JAMF, and you want to find out what are the CIs that are getting discovered by JAMF. You can author a query and run it, and it will show you like all the CIs that are discovered by JAMF, right? Or the second type of query is like finding the gap. For example, you have a CI that is, you're expecting it to be discovered by 2 discovery sources, like SCCM and Tanium, but there is a gap. Like you didn't know that you want to proactively look for if there are any gaps in your system where SCI is not getting discovered. You can author a second type of query. And the third type of query is the comparing the attribute values. Like for example, if you want to compare what is the value that is stored in the CI, but what did the source actually sent it? Like a source called Tanium sent fully qualified domain name as XYZ, but in CMDB, the value is ABC, right? Maybe because of different sources, different reconciliation rules, you can the CI might have ended up a different value, but you want to look at the exact value that has been sent by source, you can actually compare those things. So let's say if I wanted to find, simply go and choose what kind of classes you want. If you say that I'm fine with any classes that reports this data, and then you can choose what discovery sources that are available in your system that you wanted to investigate. For example, in this case, if I want to say that, hey, I wanted to find out all CIs that are reported by Tivoli, you continue it. You can choose if you want to see the unique CMDB360 records, or you wanted to show records by discovery source, you can filter it out. And you can create, save the query. Let's say Tivoli source records. Save, and if you run it, it will tell you like, okay, these are all the CIs that are actually discovered by Tivoli. We default, you can see, we pulled 100 records for you to show these are the 100 CIs. If you can go click on it next, you will find 100 CIs. But if you want to load a next page, you can click on load more results, then you'll get another 100 of them. So again, we optimized for performance efficiency. We don't want to bring all of those things. So we can, we do kind of page by page, right? This is one type of query, but if you want to create another type of query, so let's say you want to find gap. So let's say I wanted to find gaps in my Linux server. You can choose like what are the reporting discovery sources and what is the non-reporting sources. So for example, if you say that, hey, I wanted to find CIs that are not reported by Ltrace, but reported by ServiceNow, right? Then you can group the records how you want. And again, like if there are too many records and you wanted to filter them by your specific application service, if you have any, like for example, if you are focused on like a particular application service, you wanted to look at the data within that service, then you can choose an application service. Or if you have CMDB groups, you can choose a CMDB group here. Or if you have business service or you have technical service, then you can choose a technical service here. Right? In our case, let's go to continue. So let's say gap between Ltrace and ServiceNow. You see, these are all the CIs that are not discovered by Ltrace, but they are discovered by ServiceNow. So if you click on it, so this is a page where you can look at what attributes are coming from different discovery sources. What are the sources here? So if you see, this CI is reported only by ServiceNow and not reported by any other service, any other source. If a CI gets reported by multiple sources, then you see actually multiple columns here, like ServiceNow, SCCM, Tanium, and you can compare what are the attribute values sent by each of those discovery sources. And so if you see, these are all the values that are there in CMDB, but ServiceNow discovery source actually sent only some of those things. Like it sent only class, serial number, but some of those things are, I think, available by default. So some of those things you can see, these are all the values that are in the CMDB CI, but these are the only values that are sent by things. So if you click on choose the other one, you say these are the values that have been sent by each of those CI. If you see this one, like the workshop CI, same thing, it has more attributes. So you get a sense, right? Like basically, if you want to find any gaps in your environment, like you expect some things to be discovered by more than one, and if it is not happening, then you can figure out what exactly those kind of CIs are. So the last kind of query I would like to show is to compare the attribute values. So for example, if I wanted to compare my Windows servers, and here you can put more filters. For example, if you say that, hey, I wanted to know with an asset tag or with assigned to, with CPU count, less than 10, those kind of things. Or if you want your company field to be something, you can add a little bit more conditions before you find those things. In this case, it's fine. I don't want, I'm not sure what data it is. Just a minute. Continue. Here, like as I mentioned, you can choose multiple attributes. For example, if you want to choose fully qualified domain name, and also, let's say, choose our asset tag. You can choose like when do you want to, like how do you want the report to be, whether any of this attribute doesn't match or every attribute doesn't match, you can choose and continue. So here is where you have like, how do you want to compare? Do you want to compare to the value that is there in the CMDB CI, or you want to compare between two different discovery sources? So if you want to compare with CMDB, then you check this box. If you want to compare between two different discovery sources, for example, if I want I'll trace. And if I want ServiceNow, I can choose this. Same thing applies like earlier. Click on continue, save the query, save it, and you run it. So it seems like there are no results. So, okay, so here you can see the fully qualified domain name is different between ServiceNow and Altris. These are the values that we have. But if you click on, so this is the CI. So this is the original record. Probably there's some issue here, but you can actually click on the field. It will tell you what exactly, the whole CI has it. You can actually go click on the whole CI. But in general, you see that if you get a sense, right? Like you can see what are the attributes that have different values. So if you go and update the query, let's say we go and queries. If you want to go edit it, I can modify it. Continue. So I said any attribute, if I change every attribute. So you see there are no CIs that actually both of them are different in that case, like two different attributes have data mismatch. So only one attribute is having mismatch, the other one is exactly same. So these are the different kind of queries, like you have this dashboard and you have the different queries that you can actually author on those things. You can change the settings here. If you want to look at the data itself, data is actually stored in the table called CMDB multi-source data.list. So if you see, we actually save all the data that is being sent by a discovery source in a JSON blob. So if you click on it, so we actually store whatever data that has been sent. If you have any custom attributes, if you have custom classes, doesn't matter. So whatever payload that has been sent by each discovery source, we'll store all of those things here, right? You might ask, like, why do we actually store it if we are only giving querying ability on little things? So that brings into the dynamic reconciliation. So if you go to class manager, if I have choose hardware, the reconciliation rules, whenever the CMDB360 is enabled, you can actually, if you click on the add reconciliation rules, you see a switch here. Whether you want to create a static reconciliation rule, which is the earlier way of doing it. But if you want to collect, or if you want to leverage the data that has been collected from multiple sources, you can use dynamic reconciliation rule. So in this context, let's go into dynamic reconciliation rule. If you click on dynamic reconciliation rule, it will tell you, okay, let me take back. So in the static reconciliation rule, what we do is we tell system that, hey, this is my authoritative source. If a CI gets discovered by my authoritative source, don't let it update by any other discovery source, because I know this is an authoritative source. And for these attributes, do not let any other source touch it, right? Once it has been discovered. In dynamic, and the problem with this is, like, you have to come up with the prioritized order. Like if you have 10 discovery sources, then you have to determine what is the prioritized list of order. Like, source 1 is high priority, source 4 is next priority, source 3 is the third priority. You have to come up with those things. But now dynamic reconciliation rule will help you take data-driven decisions. So once you click on this, you can come up and say that, hey, I want my attribute to be the same value where it has been reported by multiple discovery source, like the majority wins. So you can choose that, hey, I want to create a rule which is most reported on some of those attributes. For example, if you go click next, let's say company field, right? If you want company field to say that, hey, the company field on the CI should be the one which has been most reported by all my discovery sources. I don't want the last discovery source to update it. If there are 5 discovery sources reporting a CI, a minimum of 3, right? Like are the most reported. If all of them have a unique value, then that's a different story. But like if let's say if there are 2 discovery sources reporting the same value, I want the value on the CMDB CI to be the one from the most reported sources, right? You can configure, you can now make the data-driven decisions based on your CMDB360 data, what kind of reconciliation rules you want to build. Like you want it to be, most reported, or you want to say that, hey, I know my RAM value should come from the largest out of all these discovery sources, right? Once the RAM has been added, the source which actually picked the latest, that should be my reconciled value. Or there could be many attributes that you can make decisions about based on the type of attribute. For example, if it is a number attribute, you wanted to choose the largest value or the smallest value or the most reported value. You have the flexibility to choose what kind of attribute. Or in some cases, you might say that, hey, I want that value to be the first one, the first discovery source that brought in the value. I want that to be my final reconciliation value. So you can choose that kind of attribute. Or you can also choose the last reported value. So you have the flexibility to choose, but the benefit of this is you are actually using the data itself rather than creating rules by source. Okay, Anand, I think you had a question.
Yeah, Kiran, so can we create our own dynamic rule type? Now it looks like the fixed rule. Is this something can we add our own as well?
No, because if you add a rule, you also have to decide how you want to calculate it, right? Today we didn't give that flexibility, or we didn't add the ability to customize. For example, if you want to say that like I wanted to put the average value of RAM rather than the first one or the last one. If you want to choose an average value, you need to define the function as well, right? Like how you get to that function. So that's something we haven't opened it up. If a lot of customers ask for it, we might in the future, but as of now, today, we do not have ability to choose your own rule type.
Okay, thanks.
And like similar to static reconciliation, you choose a type here and then you choose attributes, what attributes you want. If you observe, you don't have all attributes here directly. In case of static, you have all attribute, but in case of dynamic, especially when you choose what kind of attributes, you will not have an all attribute. You have to choose what attributes, because some attributes do not apply for all kind of types. So we explicitly have to select and add them. So let's say if I choose them, go next. Similar to static, you can actually put more filter conditions, like only when this condition is true, I want to apply this rule. That's additional filtering you can add for reconciliation. So once you add these reconciliation rules, then the final value of the CI would be honored using this reconciliation rule. So let's say if I create some rules, let's say, and it's not like you can only choose one of them. So you can choose for some attributes dynamic reconciliation, and for some attributes you can choose static if you want. So let's say I wanted to choose first reported for, let's say, asset information, asset tag, and asset. Okay. And I can also go and choose a static reconciliation rule for, let's say, Altrace, RP 100. Next, let's say category. Right. You can do this as well, like both static and dynamic. And you can actually even override like from higher parent to child. And you have an option here to click preview rule. It will tell you what is the priority and what attribute comes from which role type. So you can see asset tag, the first reported value will be used for CMDB. And for category, Altrace is the source, which will actually be the first priority. So here, if you want to pick a CI and preview it, then you can also have the option, for example. You can choose what attribute. So if you have a CI that actually as CMDB360 data, that actually you'll see it as a UI here. I'll show that you'll see that here. Let's go to. If nothing else, thank you. Thanks all for your time.